Greetings. My name is Michael Miller. This is a Michael Miller trademark training video out to you because you're watching. Welcome. It's meant for Michael Miller Pilates licensed affiliates, the Core to Core, and anyone interested in surviving and thriving as a Pilates instructor. So my number one, I have four titles today, and my number one title is Welcome to my new subscribers on YouTube. I'm unaccustomed to any observation coming on YouTube except one or two persons I think that are involved. And when I think of course, my recommendation to you, which is number 4 coming up, but is create content. And regardless of audience, for now, by creating content on YouTube, which is what I encourage you to do, if you're a Pilates instructor and you're wondering where to go or what to do, I'm saying create your own content, right? Even if you don't put it out live on a social media, do create your own content. And some of the most fascinating creation of content to express themselves as a Pilates instructor, I just love what Bevere Pilates is doing. I think that's BEVIRPILATES. It's an Instagram account, and so with Instagram, people can't take what you put there in content. Like in Facebook, your picture's there and they can copy it if they want. You have more control over your content in Instagram, and I'm just amazed at how much animation and utilization, I think, of the capacity within the medium of Instagram lends itself to putting yourself out there, being a Pilates instructor, staying in touch with your students, or professing yourself for your students. And the thing about having content is it has a lasting, it lives on even after you've done creating it. A YouTube channel. YouTube, I have a bigger class, if you will, or a bigger viewership in Facebook. That's at Michael Miller, not Michael Miller Pilates, but Michael Miller. And I usually broadcast there after here. If you don't hear it well enough in one of the two, you can always try to hear it either expressed as a rehearsal or afterwards or go back to afterwards as the epilogue. Number 2. So welcome, and if you never listen again, before I get off into too much, there's 2 things to learn from, or there's 2 things to be aware of from me, and that has to do with a view of biomechanics, the way the body engages itself to move through space, and one view about Pilates. Those are the 2 views in which I try to identify what hadn't really been pointed out to yet, which is why I've named it, and it's called core new tension, where you have oppositional rotation between axes. And so that's one of the definitions of the 2 things you have to get from me. Know about core new tension. Whether you listen to Pilates or do Pilates or anything, if you're into movement and establishing more uniform engagement of the musculature, I think that the biology reaches into the physics that works to get it where it wants to go. And the second thing, so CT is coordinate tension, MMP is Michael Miller-Pilates, and Michael Miller-Pilates is one view of Pilates out of the burgeoning thousands, tens of thousands, millions. Because we all create our own simulation internally, and then consciousness projects ourselves into a future of that, and away we go. So a lot of my recordings are about explaining what MMP is and why it is that way. And it all boils down to a point of view that there's an experience to be had from your pursuit of doing the movements. I say movements, it's plural, and they're arranged in order, so it's choreography, if you will. If it is, it is. So the choreography of the mat. So MMP is just a particular point of view about what is Pilates and why is it that way. So in getting distinction or a difference between two points of view, there's one point of view that's the only one I know how to profess, so it's the only one I try to share, and it feels better that way. You can make of it what you want, but there's an ideal within the original work that can be felt in the pursuit of that work, choreography, that movement. And within MMP, your target is the experience of being, thinking, and observing completely coordinated. And all I do is make a distinction or an interpretation of three words Joe used. So he used body, mind, and spirit, and he used the word body, and yet are we Germanically speaking mind philosophically, or are we speaking mind about thinking? I don't know, but in MMP, mind is thinking, and differentiated from spirit, which is observing. And so in MMP, thinking is prefrontal cortex, and observing is amygdala hippocampus, the more direct input of sensation into the processor, right? Where would the Starship Enterprise be without sensors? And we have our own, and observing is the capacity. MMP attempts to coordinate with thinking and being in the pursuit of the choreography. So, I published on my site my YouTube timeline, on my Facebook timeline, the great ad for training from a fellow teacher down under. And it addresses the huge challenge of having the confidence to to feel like you know what you're talking about and that your bases are covered, that there aren't any gaps that distract from your comprehension of the essence of what it is. So that's my puzzle metaphor. Most of Pilates is looked at without awareness that there's a picture on the other side of all the pieces, and all they get are pieces of the puzzle, which in this analogy or metaphor are exercises. So exercises are pieces of the puzzle, and you learn them from a myriad of different places, and all of them are what you know. All of them are you because they're your experiences, they're your exercises. But when you compare them, especially when you compare them in the order of Joe's sequence, meaning is revealed beyond just the exercises unto themselves. So I've often compared classical Pilates to hieroglyphics before the Rosetta Stone, where the interpretation on the hieroglyphics were individualistic and symbolistic, and maybe not even symbolistic, but it wasn't until the Rosetta Stone that it became apparent that hieroglyphics were a language, right? And so if you look and if you're interested, the hieroglyphics are more than just general abstractions of exercises and more than just do them in this order, and yet the same order over 40 years in Joe's life, documented by Joe, same order, right? So if you're going to evolve something, evolve your understanding of why the order didn't change in Joe's lifetime, rather than doing anything other than paying a homage to the order, the sense, the meaning of the original work, and using it in your confidence as a Pilates instructor, knowing that not only do the pieces fit together, but when you turn them all over, they represent something beyond just the pieces themselves, and that no matter how many pieces are missing, if you have enough pieces of the puzzle assembled, it's apparent, the picture that it reveals is apparent. And that's what sets you free, I think, as a Pilates instructor. It's getting the bigger picture without needing more exercises or more frames of reference, or, you know, once there's clarity in the meaning that the assembled pieces reveal, there's a degree of confidence in that. It's like having an end point, or an edge, not only an edge, but a corner to the puzzle. So, why a long box? I talked way too long on that, but I got into talking to you as a new subscriber. If you speak a different language, please translate what I'm telling you, because it's an important message to me that I'm trying to communicate to you, and I hope you pass it on. And what was that message? Well, for one, that there's a reason why Pilates is what it is. Think of that. Think of all the people that are teaching Pilates and doing Pilates and making equipment for Pilates. And few are aware of, and even fewer that gets to the end of my broadcast, and I'll leave that for later. Let's go on. Number 2, why use the long box? So on the reformer, long box, pull straps, T-pull, backstroke, teaser. That's as far as I go in intermediate, and I find myself wondering now, you come out of teaser, which is all flexion, and the next 2 things, breaststroke and horseback, are well, breaststroke is extension out of that, right? So that's why that comes next. And then out of that comes horseback, which is an evolution of teaser, where in teaser your anchor, your hips, are in touch with the long box. In the horseback, your end point happens out at mid-thigh. You suspend your core in space, like shoulder bridge, and perform teaser from a contact point that's away from your center. See how that's ordered up? But my question is, why long box? What brought me to the comment is, what's the first thing you do on long box? Is you lay on it prone with your arms down and pull straps. And that's tough to accomplish on the floor, on the mat, on the level, face down. You can't do that because arms don't go lower than the mat that you're on, unless you're elevated to the point where you can be face down and articulate your range of motion with your arms in front of you. Right? And then that's what brought me to this, and I got into thinking about breaststroke and then horseback, right? Horseback would be tough to do on the floor as well, right? Because your feet can't go lower than the surface that you're making contact point at. Right? So when you drive your car into a lift to work on it underneath, right? In many ways, for me, the long box, especially in that effort of being prone and working the range of motion, first in the midline, right, in a sagittal plane, a plane that divides the body in this plane. I know the midline is right here, and the sagittal line is the same thing. It slips my mind what a plane is parallel to that. But we get to, by lying on the long box, make our arms articulate in a plane 90 degrees to the one we're laying on. Oh, and that flowed over into thinking about the use of the spine corrector, right? As a platform for the hips that allows a range of motion beyond flat if you're flat on your back. Short box on the reformer. Feet are anchored, hips articulate off of stable femurs. You just came out of stable hips and articulating femurs, right? If you did intermediate level stomach massage. I'm just amazed there isn't a more attention given out of the pure curiosity of how it's structured. Joe's choreography, and finding the sense, finding deeper layers of sense that it makes. Like my friend that says, Michael, you talk about the cave, but really at the back of the cave is a caverna, like a cavern. And that goes to, in terms of how deep you go and how much you coordinate your capacities that we all have. And as an instructor, all I'm doing is trying to have fun, help another person have fun, discovering their ability to control, their ability to coordinate those capacities. Number 3, circles and arrows. Circles and arrows. This has to do with the difference between an elevator lifting up from beneath you in your pelvis area, like lifting your pelvic floor. I've demonstrated that. Well, I've demonstrated and seen demonstrated by others. Putting between your legs this kind of an interlace of fingers and lifting up to communicate the idea that you're after of engagement of musculature. And in that regard, where you're trying to lift something up in one direction, that's an arrow. Okay? And as much and as important as all of that lift up is, it is in its ability to participate in the rotation that creates the grip, that draws the arrows into the circle. Pull your stomach in, an arrow down. Squeeze your buttocks, an arrow in, pointing at your buttocks. Squeeze your legs together, an arrow in, squeezing your legs together. It's not until you coordinate the arrows into, or organize your effort into a rotational dynamic, that it more accurately reflects the physics that your body is embracing to move through space. So number 4, direct to the consumer. One really big company is selling stuff in order to make stuff to sell it direct to the consumer. And that's like programming, something that you could send and could arrive on a screen. Maybe just audio, but more likely video, right? And as I said at the beginning of this, make content. And why is that? Because the biggest companies are moving to try to deliver what they want, what they have as content that they create direct to the consumer. And if that's what people with huge amounts of money are reaching towards, it's the consumer and the availability of choice of content, which is a whole nother subject. But if you don't create content, you won't have anything to sell as content. Greatest instructor in the world, don't want to do that, that's fine. But to the extent that you create your own media and you put it on YouTube, which has a completely open audience, I think, it's not like Facebook that restricts your audience to your 26 most active friends kind of thing. That's why I'm here on YouTube, because even though I have 0 to 1 regular viewers, the light shines out to a much broader audience, which is why I would encourage you to be familiar with and make YouTube live broadcasts. Okay? So my summary is, have fun, use discretion, and create content. Create content. Create content. Control your content so that it's your content that you are looking for a place to find a connection to the consumer. Because really, see, the consumer's out there on the web, right? They can get to you if they want you, if they want what you have. Because word of mouth will spread, you would think, right? And if not, then maybe nobody wants what you have to say. But either way, the satisfaction is in the opportunity and the privilege to get to broadcast would mean something to you, to anyone that's interested in listening to it. And as a recording becomes content that may have no viewership now, but in the year 4040 may still have no viewership. Who knows? But I think in life as human beings we're motivated to share. And what matters to us most is the passion that comes out of it. And for me, I'm blessed in that I'm clear that I'm here to communicate with you. The identification of core new tension and the identification of the ideal within Joe's original work. Life can't live forever. Read between the lines. See behind the curtain. Add 2 and 2. Direct your thinking Geist